Hey everybody, John Denton here, and I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about, honestly, one of the most special games I've played in a long time. Yeah, it's Astro's Playroom, the pack-in game on PS5, and what an absolute marvel this little treasure is. I'm sure by now you've heard people talk about it as this amazing kind of tech demo for the DualSense controller, and it absolutely is that. And you may have heard people talk about it being this astonishing love letter to the history of PlayStation. And it is that too, but you know what? It's a little bit deeper than both of that for me. And also, we need to recognise the incredible ability of the team that built this game. It's truly got to be the most impressive pack-in game since Wii Sports. And for me personally, honestly, this game got me in my feelings. I'm not going to lie to you. Before we get into that though, I'm just going to chat a little bit about this DualSense controller. I'm sure if you've watched other videos by now, if you've had hands-on with the PS5, if you played this game, then you know what I'm talking about anyway. But I've always been a massive fan of force feedback and rumble in controllers. Rumble pack on the N64. For me, the most important thing in great games is feel. And weirdly, despite the name, it's actually kind of an intangible thing, feel. You might just say, okay, well, let's up the frames because that's going to feel better, it'll feel smoother, and yeah, you're right to a certain extent. But there's more going on than that. There's 30 frames per second games that feel amazing. Super Mario 64 feels amazing on the N64, and that shit's about 12 frames a second. So it's not just about frame rate. You can have super smooth 60 plus frame games that just don't have great game feel. So much goes into it. It's a combination of things. Yes, smooth frame rate, but animation, sound, visual design, all these things matter. Some of the best feeling games of all time are Mario games, right? And are Nintendo's first party games. And the reason they feel so good is there's so much polish that goes into it. I listened to this great thing once at Reggie Fils-Aimé talking about Kyoto craftsmanship. Obviously Nintendo out of Kyoto, but that's also where they made the best samurai swords apparently back in the day. And the entire culture of that city is about sort of perfection and reiteration and iteration just to get the finest cloth, the finest swords, and the finest games. Now obviously Astro's Playroom isn't by Nintendo, but it might as well be, because the team Asobi in Sony has definitely taken a lot of inspiration from the Mario games, but in the right possible way. And talking about feel, this game has incredible feedback just in the way you move your little character around, in other subtle ways as well. Obviously the frame rate's amazing, obviously the haptic feedback inside his controller is amazing, but also there's other subtle things going on there. The fact that some of the sounds come out of the speaker in the controller as well, just further adding to the feeling. And of course, this being a demonstration for this controller, my goodness me, when I first grabbed hold of it and I started walking over different surfaces, I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, it is cool, but like, let's not forget the HD rumble in the Joy-Cons, the HD rumble in the Switch Pro controller. Let's not forget those things. In fact, that stuff's actually made by the same company that made the haptic stuff inside the DualSense controller. But as you continue to play, as you go into GPU jungle and you can feel those blades of grass sliding past your character, sort of brushing against him, the rain that gets heavier and the sort of punch inside the controller of that, when you go through the air traffic in SSD Speedway and you can feel it blasting past. Like, it is mental how good it is. It's so well done, and it gives the controller this sense of weight. The controller's quite heavy anyway, but it makes everything feel heavier. Then you add in the incredible tension that you can get in the triggers, obviously when you use the spring or when you're the little monkey character, but there's more than that. You pick up the bow and arrow and it has tension in the bow. It gives the controller a sense of weight and physical weight, which is like nothing else. And obviously this game's going to take advantage of that more than any other. But automatically you're kind of completely engrossed in this product that's so well made, and then on top of that, this love letter to everything PlayStation. Now that's kind of a strange thing to say, because I've been in PlayStation's ecosystem since day one, right? I remember getting my PS1, having to turn that bitch upside down to get it to work, having to balance it on books to get airflow, like basically a piece of junk that I love dearly. PS2 also. PS3 lesser, but it's not like I have great reverence for its characters. In fact, there weren't even that many characters back in the day. In fact, the whole PlayStation exclusives thing, which is a big talking point these days, it only really became a big deal sort of back end of the PS3 and definitely in the PS4 era. Uncharted, Last of Us. Okay, you've definitely had great PlayStation exclusives before that, But I don't think you can hold this stuff in the same reverence as Nintendo, right? However, what Astro's Playroom does, it creates reverence for PlayStation. It's not just a love letter and a reminder and a nostalgia trip. It creates this reverence, man. The references as you move around the world and you see the little robots with the camera and what they've done to breathe new life into shit like Killzone. Who cares about Killzone? When I saw that little group of hell-gassed little robots, little Astrobots, I was like, oh man, yeah, Killzone. Killzone? Who gives a shit about Killzone? But this is what I'm saying. It creates reverence. When you pick up the little items and it's stuff like, oh yeah, the iToy camera from PS3. I don't give a shit about that, but right now I'm excited to see that thing. Oh shit, I can open the little flap on that version of the PS2. I'm not going to try and pretend like I cared about any of that stuff back in the day. I didn't have these special nostalgic memories in the same way that I do with other games. But Astrobot is so well designed, so lovingly put together, and so meticulously crafted. It creates nostalgia. It creates reverence, man. And that is magic. And that's why it had me in my feelings. Because what it does so beautifully well, especially to someone in my generation, someone who's been there from PS1 all the way through, it made me feel like all of that time spent was worth it. I grew up in the era where video games were still considered kids' toys. They were considered a waste of time. It's what you do when you're a basement dweller with no life. That is the era I grew up in. I grew up as a PS1 player, getting bullied at school for still liking video games in my teens. Can you imagine that now with the options, career paths, the excitement that we have around video games these days? Can you imagine getting bullied just for playing them? But that's what it was like in the 90s, mate. It was. But to see this lovingly crafted history of PlayStation, it honestly made me feel like all of that was worth it and all of that was special. And I've been able to connect in these special moments, in this special reverence with all of these hundreds of thousands and millions of people all around the world that I've never met. And we can all enjoy it together as we embark on this new generation together. That is what Astro's Playroom did for me. It's more than just a game. It's more than just a pack-in. It's definitely more than just a tech demo. It's an absolute fucking magical piece of software that I implore everybody to play, especially if you have grown up with all the generations of PlayStation. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I do hope that Team Asobi do get to make a full game. Obviously, we had Astro's Rescue Mission on PSVR, but I think they deserve the chance to make something substantial and full length on PS5. Give them a few years to do it and let's see what comes out of it. But ultimately for me, my defining moment so far in the next generation, which for me is only a few days old, it has to be Astro's Playroom. What a special video game that is.